Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Kipp. I'm so glad to see you today. I'm here with my friend Marilise, who is an emotional and resilience, a mindset and emotional resilience coach. So she fits right into our wellness space here in recovery from chronic pain and addiction. Also, the ancestral clearing piece, emotional resilience, that's some of that stuff comes through our ancestors. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm really excited to share Marilise with you today. Would you tell us where you're hailing us from, Marilise, and how you got started?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Marilise de Villiers, and I now live back in South Africa in the Cape Winelands. So, very, very beautiful part of the world. We lived in England for 18 years, and so it was time to come home. And yeah, I think my journey very much. I feel like I've come full circle. So my company is called Roar. And I was gifted Roar at the age of 12, when I had a very, very clear voice to tell me to speak up against the man who sort of molested myself and many, many other kids in the neighborhood. And so I only realized this about, a couple of years ago that actually I was gifted Roar at that age. And so the emotional resilience piece very much is around speaking up. And then, as a 12-year-old girl, not really knowing how to cope with the enormity of speaking up against a respected man in the community and everything that happened as a result of that. And then suffering from various forms of addiction, eating disorders for 15 years, and then work addiction following that. And so, really, my journey has been very much, and everything I teach has been very much based on my own lived, is based, I should say, on my own lived experience. And Elizabeth, I'm happy to go deeper depending on where you want to go with this. But yeah, that's just a really, really quick overview.
Beautiful. My goodness, that you've been on such a journey. I just have to say how much courage it takes at the age of 12 to speak out the way you did. I'm kind of thrown back on my feet. And by the way, it also takes a tremendous courage to face an addiction and find your way through it. And we, of course, we don't do that alone. We do that with help, but we still have to do the work, right? It takes enormous courage because um, as Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a trauma doctor, says, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. So,
Yeah.
and we're pretty much wired to move away from pain and towards pleasure. So when we turn into our wounds and go to heal them, we're actually evolving our biology, our system. We're really evolving the system into kind of a new way of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
massive kudos to you. So
And
so you.
courage,
Mhm.
just to pick up on courage, and thank you for your kind words. And I'm gonna fully take that because yes, it does take a lot of courage and a journey return to sort of wholeness and self-love and really rediscovering who you are and finding the truth of who you are. But courage is very, very fundamental to my raw blueprint. So I use sort of three big words, which are my three big words is purpose. So really living your authentic purpose, standing in your power. So really, really owning your power, taking back your power as well in many, many cases. I think linked to that for me is also healing intergenerational trauma, to take back that inner strength, that inner power, and to change the story. So the courage then to speak up, the courage to roar. And so those are sort of my three fundamental pillars of my life curriculum.
Beautiful. And also, you wrote a book, Roar, How to Tame the Bully Inside, Outside and In, and I love that. So I have a teaching on how to re-script your inner critic that I do, and this is very similar to that. And we all really need to. I don't think I was really able to heal my to deal with the bully energy that I experienced until I was able to re-script my own inner bully. I had to kind of go there first,
Yes.
and so that, and it was remarkable to me how much power that gave me. I
Mm.
really stepped into my power when I faced my own inner bully. That was just that was just my own lived experience around that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the gift of, so my experience started really, and the transformational journey in a very intentional, very conscious way started about 8 years ago when I was in a workplace where I was being bullied, and the perpetrator obviously knew that I was prone to being bullied. There was that sort of,
That
um,
happened.
they do know. And I did a TEDx, and I say in my TEDx, the more he bullied me, the more I bullied myself. And you're right, it is that inner bully. It's taming that inner bully. It's transforming that inner bully into an inner roar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you really have to do that first before you can roar to the outside world. And I think my learning from that started at the age of 12 because I roared to the outside world, but inside I had a crippling inner bully, which then led to the eating disorders, the
Mm.
work addictions. And so until you actually go there, as you say, you know, it's all upside down. You can't be your most powerful, authentic self and really do the work that we are here to do in the world.
So what was the turning point for you when you 8 years ago when you had that experience and you were just like, now I'm going to do this?
Yeah.
How did you, what was,
So yeah, I was
how did that
was
work?
on my knees. Enough is enough. I had that very profound enough is enough moment where I was actually in the boardroom and the bully actually demoted me in front of my whole team. And so by that point, I really was struggling. I was really struggling with my mental, emotional, and physical health. But instead of supporting me, he just literally threw me at the wolves and decided that I was no longer fit to run the team, to head up the team. So in the boardroom, casually announced that I will no longer be the director heading up the team. And very shortly after that, I found myself in the bathroom crying my eyes out. And I think that's when I sort of looked up in the mirror. There was this pivotal moment where I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw myself for the very first time, like really, really saw myself for the very, very first time in a very, very long time. And that's when I really stepped back into, okay, I've got to step away. Enough is enough. And I quit. I literally quit on my knees with no plan for my life. But that's, as you say, that's how transformation happens.
Oh, for sure. We make a decision that we're done, that we've had enough, and because the consequences of not doing that are too grave. So we're
Mm,
willing to face whatever the consequence is of us saying we're done.
exactly.
Right.
That was.
And that becomes a sacred bottom where we're actually telling the truth
Yes.
right to ourselves. And yeah, that's pretty much a bottom for anybody who suffers from any kind of addiction. reaching that point, from there we begin anew, right? And
Yeah.
become a new person. How did you decide to create a business, and how is it exactly that you serve your clients? Because we're our worlds are like this, so, or you know, we can help each other in
Yeah,
communicating.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. So as I say, I wish I could say I stepped away from a corporate career and had this big, bold plan for my life. It wasn't like that. I literally got a little list from of 10 action items from a friend who said to me, this is how I started my company. And I literally ticked off that list, did everything to get my little company started. And then, fortunately for me, I also work as a behavioral change consultant. And so I specialize in cybersecurity. And so the initial plan was to do contract work, so just to sort of like pay the bills. And so I set my little company up to do the contract work. And then the very, very first sort of next step that I took was to sign up with a very, very high level coach to help me get my primarily physical health back on track, because if anything, I'd learned from my addiction, my eating disorders, that I had to really focus on my physical health and my mental health. And so I really signed up for a very, very intensive 6 month program to just get back into shape. And so really that was a very sort of natural, intuitive thing that I did. But as a result of me taking charge of that side of things, because obviously, 20 years prior, I actually went to rehab for my eating disorders. So I think I had some real intuitive knowledge and feeling and understanding about the right steps to take to get me out of the mess. So I feel very grateful that it was sort of the second opportunity that I had to navigate such a big ordeal. But what happened was everything else starts falling into place, and you start asking these beautiful questions about what do I want? What would I love? And I really knew that I wanted to become a coach. So I studied and certified with Brendan Burchard, so as a certified high performance coach. So that was kind of one of the early steps. Then I decided I'm so angry because workplace bullying happens to everybody. Like I thought I was so special. It only happened to me. And now suddenly I realize it's happening to everybody. So I'm going to write a book about it. And then I sign up to write the book. And so it's like little baby steps. And then I think in the last sort of 3-4 years, things have just really evolved. My blueprint has evolved. My curriculum has evolved. I'm leaning in more and more. And the more and more we learn, I'm just called to share that with other people, because I know we are light workers. People need us. And as you say, us together, coming together, I think is such a powerful way to take this forwards.
For sure. Um, one of the things that is inspiring to people is hearing the transformation, and kind of the moments like I've had it, that kind of thing, and then oh, I need some help here. I'm gonna hire a coach to help me, you know, provide some momentum for me in healing.
Mm.
Um, and then Brendan Burchard's amazing. he's he's and talk about energy. Yeah, he's extraordinary. So that's a high powered. Plus you've got the TEDx talk. That's a high. You stepped right onto a high powered stage there. But you did it in an order. It wasn't like all of a sudden there you actually had to go through a process. And again, I have to say, you have the gift of courage, but you also have the gift of one of your other words, the gift of purpose, like really understanding your purpose, and you also have another P word, the persistence, right? Too, and I really feel like that's another characteristic of people in recovery. We just we just it's like we're seeking for a new way to live, and we know it's there, and we're not going to stop until we get there. And once we get there, we're going to stay there and we're going to evolve from there, that kind of thing.
Yes, I totally get it. And it's so hard for me to describe the moment that I I knew that the eating disorder was no longer an eating disorder. I don't know how to explain this, but it was like, yes, you have relapses along the way, but then suddenly there's a moment where you just like, this no longer controls me.
That's right. Well, you've
And
stepped into your power, and
yeah,
food, instead of becoming a way for self-soothing or self-deprecation, depending on kind of what you're doing with it or not with it, because I work in that space too, and I've
yeah.
had that experience. Um, Food becomes information.
Wow.
So we go from this, clinging, the attachment to and I'm not saying we're not attached to food because we have to eat. This is the tricky thing about food addiction and dealing with it, is because we have to eat on a daily basis, or
You've
hopefully.
got to confront the biggest issue
And
is
so
food.
it's right in your face all the time, and you can't, you kind of can't get away from it until you have to find your way through and find your power over it instead of its power over us. And that, there's a lot happening there. It's not as simple as we're saying that it is. So big kudos to you, and that you do you coach in that space? Do you coach around eating disorders, or is it more just emotional resilience and
I,
that works around that?
I don't specialize in I don't sort of I'm very careful not to cross the line between sort of counseling and coaching. Like
Mhm.
I always refer people to very
Mhm.
to the professionals.
Mhm.
So my coaching is more in the space of emotional regulation,
Oh,
finding your inner roar, amplifying your roar to the outside world. So it's much more about communication and in high stakes environments, so very much in a corporate context,
awesome.
but also often, I end up doing a lot of work in the personal space, because obviously it's not just work relationships, it's relationships full stop. And to be able to courageously face the difficult conversation it's a skill, and it's such an important skill to learn. But it starts with you knowing who you are, you knowing what you want, and what matters to you. And I think that's why we start with purpose. That's why we start with values, with identity, and then build on that.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds to me really that you start with the nervous system like I do. You start there. People come
Yes.
to me, and I really, this is not what I teach, because it's kind of funny that they come to me and ask this question, but they do. They say, Elizabeth, what's my purpose? Like, I know what their purpose is. Like, it's kind of interesting. And so, but I have the same answer to everybody. And the answer is, your purpose is to breathe consciously. Everything comes from that, right? So we always start with the nervous system, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I'm doing a lot of breath work at the moment, and myself, sort of an embodiment practice. And so I'm learning a lot about the breath. So it's interesting that you say that, and I'm more and more incorporating that into my curriculum as well. So yeah,
Beautiful.
it's beautiful. It is
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's exciting. We just have a few minutes left. Um, so everybody, so I met Marilise in a group that Debbie Prediger pulled together. Debbie Prediger is online business coach and kind of general inspiring person. she, she,
Beautiful, beautiful
she's a
woman. Big
beautiful,
shout
like,
out, baby. Love you.
communicator and a collaborator, and she's like this massive networker. She brings people together, and so she's kind of like the glue that pulls a lot of people together, and she's really good at what she does. And I met Marilise in the visibility challenge that she brought forward, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And so we've got a couple things here. One is, what does it mean to be visible? And the other is, we're connected into a private Facebook group called Be Extraordinary Women's Network. And it's not like I have to be so special to be in the Extraordinary Women's Network. The Be Extraordinary Women's Network, just by saying yes to being in a community like that, is actually an extraordinary move. So anyway, I'm just wondering, Marilise, if you would tell us a little bit about what it means to you to be invisible, to be visible. Obviously, you started doing that when you were quite young, and what is your feeling about this? The being an extraordinary woman.
Yeah, so I'm very, very much of the belief that, you know, visibility actually starts with you seeing yourself first. So yes, you know, I think a lot of what I've navigated, you know, my message was for me first, you know, in terms of, you know, you cannot be visible necessarily when you're navigating big traumatic events in your life. You've got to heal first, right? So there's also the timing. So it's about, you know, visibility is about authentically stepping out with your empowered inner roar and stepping out to the outside world. So there's a something about, you know, so often I see people show up and it's like you can just sense that, you know, there's maybe just not quite an alignment or an integrated thing, you know. So your mess definitely becomes your message, but you have to, I think there's a responsibility to really be whole, become your whole self. And then you can let your whole self roar and making your whole life work and then stepping out in a big way, but it has to be authentic. And I think that's for me is you know, the people who really, really stand out, the authentic, impactful leaders of the world, the most visible people really just do what they're authentically passionate about and, you know, and basically giving their hearts to the world. So for me, that is essentially what it's about. And then you've got to be extraordinary, you know, you would not be able to help but be extraordinary. So I really, for me, saying yes to this is also a challenge, an opportunity, a stretch. And so I'm really excited and honored to journey with you and to meet you, Elizabeth. And, you know, it's kind of this powerful collection of women and kind of creating a sisterhood, a community. I think it's so important, especially in this day and age, that we hold hands, we come together and we support one another. You know, we collaborate, we do not compete, we rise by lifting others. You know, I so passionately believe that.
Yeah, I do too. Of course, we we discover that in the recovery community, how we lift each other up. So that's just kind of bread and butter in that world. But in the business world, I remember back in, was this 2010, when my son got into business, and he coined the term, or I don't know if he coined it, but he used it, and I'd never heard it anywhere before. That was the first time I heard it. Co-opetition, which was the shift, right, from pure competition to this other thing. And, you know, then feminine model is more just collaboration, right? By working together, everybody wins that way. And we're also working in alignment there with the energy of the universe being um, abundant rather than
Yes,
in a competition where if we're working in a competitive model, we're actually living the energy of there's not enough. And
absolutely.
now we're fighting with ourselves that we're not enough, and now we're all off to the races. So it's it's
Yes,
it's important that we kind of recognize how important the collaborative model is. And it's
yes.
just my distinct pleasure to be able to sit with you, Marilise, and learn your story and a little bit about your business. And I'm excited to share you with my audience. And I hope that everybody will grab Marilise's book, Roar: How to Tame the Bully Inside and Out,
Thank you.
and check out her website, and check out her TED Talk, and see how she can fit into your world.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm so super excited for what's happening and what's coming and really collaborating with you. You're a super soul. So thank you so much.
Well,
Love
thank
and
you, too,
appreciate
Marlies.
you.
Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for spending time with us today.